What's going on, y'all? Today we are going to be discussing two of my favorite shoes to run in, and those are the ASICS Novablast 5s versus the Nike Vomero Plus. Now, both of these shoes are non-plated daily trainers. I guess the Vomero Plus is kind of like a quote-unquote super trainer, but let's get right into it. So to preface this video, I am making it because there were a couple of comments asking for a comparison between the two, so I am making it for that reason. And also just because I also looked at the specs and maybe on paper they look kind of comparable, but we'll get into why I personally don't think that these two shoes are kind of against each other or competing against each other. And I also think that you could rock both of these shoes in a shoe rotation. So with that being said, let's go right into the comparison. So as always, we are going to start off with the outsole of both shoes, starting with the ASICS Novablast 5s. As you can see, we have a pretty ASICS looking outsole pattern, if that's even a thing. But they say that you're going to get a little trampoline effect from that forefoot if you look at that little slab. And I believe this is maybe like ASICS hybrid grip, or I don't know exactly what rubber compound, nor does it really matter. But how did the traction perform in this shoe? I did run a little bit in wet weather conditions, but mostly ran on the roads in pretty ideal weather conditions, besides maybe some sand on the roads because I run close to the beach. And overall, the traction was slightly below average. I feel like it got a little bit slick, especially when it was wet or when the terrain wasn't the best. But overall, it was still passable, especially since I live in Southern California. I don't really run into crazy of weather conditions, so the outsole definitely did okay by my standards. But just keep in mind, if you run in snowy conditions, wet weather, kind of like nasty roads or a little bit of trail and stuff, the ASICS Novablast 5's outsole is definitely not going to have very good traction. I would say it's slightly below average. But if you're running mostly in good weather conditions like I do, you're going to be totally fine with this traction pattern. Speaking on durability, I have a little bit over 100 miles in the Novablast 5s, and not exactly sure if you guys will be able to pick this up on camera, but this outsole is probably one of the least durable outsoles I've had in a running shoe in a long time. I understand, I'm a little chunky. I am a little heavier. I'm 200 pounds. But I don't think that that's an excuse for ASICS. This rubber is really burning through. I don't even think I'll probably get to like 200 at this rate. Like the rubber or the outsole rubber is almost okay, it's not almost gone, but it's definitely really worn. And we'll talk a little bit about the cushion durability as well. So outsole durability is probably one of the worst, I'm not gonna lie, out of a lot of the shoes that I've tested. But that's kind of something that you kind of knowingly sign up for, I guess, when you buy a Novablast model. So yeah, that's gonna pretty much wrap up the outsole on the Novablast 5. So definitely a little bit below average for traction and outsole durability. If that's something that you really care about, it's definitely like maybe a 2 or 3 out of 10. Moving on to the outsole on the Nike Vomero Plus, we have a traditional Nike waffle outsole pattern, and plain and simple, I think that this traction is really good. I haven't ran in wet weather conditions in this specific model, but I would assume that it would do okay, really not the best. The outsole rubber compound is not the stickiest or the grippiest, but in good weather conditions, as well as, on the beach roads and stuff, I wasn't really slipping too much. So I would say it's a decent traction pattern. I would say at least average to slightly above average in my opinion. And as for durability, I have about 60 miles on this pair now, and it's holding up really well. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I think it kind of looks like how it did outside the box. And yeah, I'm really impressed with the durability so far in the Nike Vomero Plus. So overall, I don't think I can really grade the durability of the outsole just because it's a little bit too early, but it is showing promise. But the outsole traction is definitely like average to slightly above average. So when it comes to outsoles, comparing these two models, the Nike Vomero Plus wins pretty much by a landslide. Now, let's get into the midsole and cushion setup of both of these models, which is my favorite part of every running shoe. So starting out with the ASICS Novablast 5, we have a full-length FF Blast Max, which is basically just ASICS EVA. It's like a fancy term for their EVA. And we have a little bit slightly over 40 millimeters of stack height in the heel, dropping 8 millimeters. I don't exactly know the exact specs of this model. I'll put them right here. But yeah, it's a little bit above the, what is it called? The world standard of above 40 millimeters. So I think when people look at just the spec sheet of a lot of these shoes, you might think that the Novablast 5 has a crazy high stack height, has an abundance of cushion, which is why maybe you would compare it to a Vomero Plus. But the ride, let me talk about it a little bit. The ride is definitely more on the, I guess, softer side and a little bit squishy at first, which I personally didn't really like when I first took these out of the box. But as I put maybe 25 to 30 miles and really broke in the cushion setup, the cushion kind of already flattened out, which when I say flattened out, this sounds kind of bad, but I personally don't mind it because it's still maintain the impact absorption properties of the foam, but it felt a little bit more firm and a little bit more stable. Now, with that being said, the stack height, I don't want you guys to kind of be worried about buying the shoe maybe due to instability or maybe feeling like you're too high off the ground, because honestly, I think that even though the spec sheet says that it's over 40 millimeters of stack height, it doesn't really feel that way. That also could be me being blind because I've been wearing so many like max stack cushion shoes now that are a lot taller than the Novablast 5. But I personally don't think that, especially after you break in the shoe, this shoe just feels like a regular daily trainer. If you were to blindfold me, I would think that the stack height of the heel was maybe like 36 or 37 millimeters, dropping with 8 millimeter heel to toe drop. So overall, very comfortable setup. The cushion setup did kind of flatten out. Like I said, I have over 100 miles on this pair specifically. It did flatten out. It doesn't really have any bounce or response, but I personally really like it because it's still comfortable. It still has a little bit of impact absorption. I will say that my knees start to hurt once I go past 15, 16 miles in the Novablast 5, but to be honest, like that's still a great characteristic of a Novablast 5 because this is just a daily trainer. So the fact that I can run that many miles in a daily trainer, if you're looking to maybe train for a half marathon or also run a half marathon in this shoe, I think you're going to be good to go. Definitely has enough impact protection, but if you're looking for a super bouncy and super fun experience, I don't think that the Novablast 5 is going to give you that. Maybe out the box it will, but over time, like if you're looking for a super durable shoe, the outsole of this shoe and the cushion setup of this shoe is not the most durable in terms of how it feels out the box to how it feels after, 100 miles are put on the shoe. So that is the setup of the Novablast 5. Very good, solid, and pretty stable. Let's talk about the Nike Vomero Plus. I actually just did a 20 miler today in this shoe. So I have even more thoughts, I guess, now on this shoe, and I know the shoe pretty well now. We have a super high stack height of 45 millimeters of stack height in the heel, dropping to 35 millimeters of stack height in the forefoot of Zoom X foam, which is Nike's race foam. I don't think it's the same formulation as the ones that they use in their race day shoes, but overall, this cushion setup, take my money because I love this setup. I think it has an incredible amount of impact absorption. It's not the most bouncy setup. Like you'd think, full length Zoom X, you're gonna get like PBA and like you're gonna feel like it's like so easy to run and stuff. I do feel like it is easy to run in the shoe, but not in the sense of like I'm feeling like I'm running on trampolines or anything. It doesn't feel like a race day shoe or a super trainer, if that makes sense. But you are getting a lot of impact protection in this setup. It is extremely, extremely comfortable. The forefoot, you're not going to get as much ground feel as the Novablast 5 because there is a lot more stack, in my opinion, in the forefoot. So even though on paper the forefoot stacks might look similar because this one has a higher drop and this one has a lower drop, but overall I didn't feel the ground as much as I did in the Novablast 5, and I 1,000 times will say that the impact absorption of the Nike Vomero Plus is not even on the same planet as the Novablast 5s. Like I said, I did a 20 miler today and my legs feel decently good. I mean, the 20 miler was still hard, don't get me wrong, because this is a little bit of a heavier shoe, but the impact absorption did its job. I did pick up the pace on mile 20 and I ran faster than my marathon pace. I think my last mile was like around 8:30. Which I think is a little bit like faster than my goal marathon pace, but I was really impressed with the shoe. Like I could run a little bit faster in the shoe and I can also run really slow in the shoe. I think it's very versatile. You can take these on short runs, long runs, recovery runs. You can even walk around in these, but I wouldn't really recommend it because it's not the most stable shoe. That Zoom X, especially at slower speeds, is a little bit on the softer side in my experience. When I do pick up the pace or I start running in them, the Zoom X kind of comes alive and it firms up a little bit, so the stability is a little bit better. But if you are a heavy overpronator or a heavy supinator and you're looking for a more stable super trainer, this is definitely not the shoe for you. I just think that since it has such a high stack height, and the base is decently wide, but like I just don't think that this is a great stability shoe, especially if you run on uneven roads or uneven terrain. You're gonna want to look past this shoe. But if you're mostly running on the road and you have a pretty decent neutral strike, you're gonna really love this setup. And I think that it's a cheat code for getting miles in. Yeah, and especially as someone who doesn't like to run in a plate too often, this is a perfect long run shoe for me. And it's actually one of the reasons why I'm pretty sure this is going to be in my top 5 shoes of the year, if not maybe in the top 3 or number 1. We'll see. I don't know. There's still a lot of shoes that are going to release, so I'm going to hold off on saying that. But you can kind of tell how much I love this setup. So if I were to compare these two setups, I just think that they're different categories in my opinion, but I am making this video just in case, any consumers are comparing these two shoes just based off of the specs that they see online. You're going to get very different experiences. Like this shoe is a lot lighter. It doesn't give as much, I guess, like impact protection, but it still has plenty of impact protection, especially for a more daily trainer style of shoe versus this is like a max cushion, great long run shoe. You can kind of do everything that you do this shoe with, but with this, I would say maybe the Novablast 5 feels a little bit faster because it has a little bit more ground feel, which I personally like sometimes. Sometimes when you're running in boats like these, you don't really want to run too fast, especially if you're doing like speed work or anything on the track. I would prefer wearing this shoe if I didn't have like a plated shoe or anything. So yeah, very different setups, but it's kind of all up to you whether or not like you want. It depends on what you want and what you're training for, what your weekly mileage looks like. I'm personally training for a marathon coming in October, so I personally have been loving the Vomero Pluses just for everything, but I still find myself reaching for the Novablast 5s because they're just a really, really good shoe as well. So kind of up to you. Honestly, I'm really happy that I have both, so I can kind of switch in between them. That could be a shoe rotation that you guys could have if you are looking at both of these shoes and you have kind of the funds to buy both of them. So yeah, that's always an option. But yeah, overall cushion setup, I prefer the Vomero Plus, but like I said, it's kind of two different categories. I think that the Novablast 5 setup is still good. Durability on the cushion setup as well as the outsole is just not the best on the Novablast 5. So moving on to the upper and the fit of both of these shoes. Now, I think that both of these uppers and both of the fits are true to size, and I think that both of them support the foot very well and the body very well. I don't think you're gonna have trouble with either of the uppers or the fits as long as you get your true size or the size that fits you the best. I have a slightly wider than average foot, but I fit my size 12 foot in both of these perfectly fine. Heel lockdown in both of the shoes are amazing. I did do the heel loop on both of these shoes. If I were to give a slight edge for fit and just comfort in the fit, I would say that the Novablast 5 just really feels more locked in and a little bit more minimal, I guess, on the upper. It's still like a dual layered, I believe dual layered mesh upper, but I do like that the heel collar as well as the tongue is a lot thinner in the Novablast 5. So overall, since the fit is so good and the upper just feels a slightly lighter than the Vomero Plus, especially with the midsoles being a little bit lighter than the Vomero Plus's Chunky Monkey, I just feel like the overall fit and experience of this shoe feels kind of like lightweight, low to the ground, still has impact protection, and it's one of the reasons why the Novablast line is so popular. So upper and fit on the Novablast 5 is damn near perfect. I would say like one of the only shoes that comes to mind that beats the upper and fit of the Novablast 5 for me personally is like the New Balance More V5 or the Nike Pegasus 41. But overall, I think that this is one of the best fitting uppers that you can possibly get. I guess is really personal depending on how your foot is shaped and whatnot. But I would go true to size in the Novablast 5 and you're not going to be disappointed with this upper, even though it is a pretty basic mesh upper. Speaking really quickly on ventilation for the Novablast 5's upper, it's not the best. Like if I do the light test, not a whole lot of light shines through. But then again, I also don't run in super hot weather conditions a lot. It is a little bit humid sometimes near the beach, but I never really had a problem with my feet sweating or overheating or whatnot. It also, I think, depends on what colorway you have. So yeah, Novablast 5 ventilation, not super great, but overall upper and fit were amazing. The Vomero Plus for a big shoe honestly has a pretty lightweight upper as well. It's, I think, dual layered, and the tongue and the heel collar, like I said earlier, are really fat. Even though they are a little bit fat, overall the shoe doesn't feel super heavy. Like it still is a heavy shoe. But even on my long run today and me pushing the pace, I didn't feel like the shoe got in the way too much, especially since the foam setup didn't feel like I was sinking into it at all. It feels pretty firm, especially when you're picking up the pace thanks to that Zoom X. The upper and the fit were really good. I just don't think it's on the level of the Novablast 5, as well as just like the secure feeling that you get in the Novablast 5 is a little bit better than the Vomero Plus. But the Vomero Plus's upper and fit is really good. I would say that go true to size. It might be a little bit snug in the toe box, but that's kind of how Nike shoes run just a touch narrow, but I didn't have any problems with like my pinky toe rubbing. I do have a wider foot, so I don't have any complaints on like my toes being too scrunched up or whatnot. Like it just is a slightly snugger fit for such a max cushion shoe. A lot of the times when I look at max cushion shoes, I feel like the upper is going to be really loose, but that's not the case with this shoe. And overall, the heel lockdown and just the support in general, the fit is really good on the Vomero Plus, just not on the same level as the ASICS Novablast 5. As for ventilation, the Vomero Plus also I would say is around the same for ventilation compared to the Novablast 5. It's not the best, like there's not a whole lot of light peeking through of this upper, but it's also not the worst. So I'm probably not the best reviewer to tell you about ventilation, as I don't really, I guess, like recognize, or I don't really feel ventilation unless the ventilation is super, super good or super, super bad. But when it's in between, kind of like these shoes, like I don't really feel or notice the difference. So for upper end fit, I'm gonna have to give the slight edge to the Novablast 5. I just think that it's a little bit lighter feeling. It's a little bit better fitting, as well as it's a little bit more minimal for the cushion and the padding that they put in the upper compared to the Vomero Plus. But I would say that it's like 1A, 1B. Like the Vomero Plus is like right behind there. So don't worry too much if you're looking more for the cushion setup with the Vomero Plus and you're scared of the upper, because the upper is still really freaking good. So overall, priced at $150, the ASICS Novablast 5 is one of the most popular or one of the most coveted shoes that shoe reviewers on YouTube love. And priced at $180, the Nike Vomero Plus is just a fantastic shoe in general. I don't think you can go wrong with either of these shoes. I think what it's gonna come down to is budget, use case, and then personal preference. Kind of like all shoes, right? Like if you're looking more for a daily trainer, you're not trying to break the bank, you're also maybe training more for like a half marathon, 5K, 10K. Maybe you're starting to take running a little bit more seriously and you want to invest in a really good shoe. $150 is going to get you a really solid shoe in the Novablast 5 lineup, in my opinion. I think that the only yellow to reddish flags of this shoe is that durability. Like the outsole, especially if you're a heavier or bigger runner like myself, the outsole is not going to last as long. And sometimes when the outsole doesn't last as long, it starts to kind of hurt some muscles or tendons in my running form. That's kind of when I know a shoe's kind of needs to be retired. Like I think that these will be retired a little bit sooner than I'd like, especially for the price point of $150. And then the cushion setup, if you're okay with the cushion kind of degrading over time, that's also something that you're gonna have to deal with the Novablast 5. But while you have it, I would say the first, maybe 100 to 150 miles is going to be phenomenal in this shoe. Again, I am a bigger runner, so if you are lighter, or maybe you treat your shoes better, but I treat my shoes pretty well, you maybe could push this shoe to like 300, 350 miles. It just really depends on your build as well as your strike and how much mileage and stuff you put. But if you don't mind the durability being a little bit lackluster in the shoe for cushion as well as the outsole, then the Novablast 5 is going to be a phenomenal option. The Vomero Plus, if you're willing to spend an extra $30 and you're looking to train for a marathon, you're looking for a longer run shoe or a recovery run shoe, you want kind of like a max cushion shoe, but you don't want to sink into the shoe, or you don't want it to just be a super slow yacht or like a super big boat that's really slow. I think that the Vomero Plus is a phenomenal option. It's one of my favorite shoes of the year. I'm going to keep saying that until I get proven otherwise. And yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with either. And me being me, like I might just recommend both. Like I think like you can't go wrong picking between each other. But I do think, like I said, they are different shoes for different use cases. But I think pairing the two together, you could get a really solid shoe rotation. Use this mostly for your daily runs and maybe some speed stuff, and then use this for your longer runs or when you're trying to do recovery runs. So overall, I don't think you can go wrong with either of these shoes. I think that they're two of the best shoes in their own respective categories. I think maybe it's not the most fair comparison as well, because they are built for different things, but just wanted to make this video for those of you guys who maybe just looked at the spec sheet and thought they were similar or comparable. They definitely are really different shoes. So hope this video helps, and let me know in the comment section down below if I missed anything. I'll try my best to get back to everyone, and I will catch you guys in the next video.